Hi, students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest here in Central Europe. Hi, Jainil. Hi, Sammy. Hi, Michael. Nice to see our members in this class. This is a members chat class. Everybody's welcome to watch. That means only members can type into the chat. We will have an all chat class coming up in 90 minutes, which will be speaking part 3 following from this cue card. Now, today's cue card was requested by Jainil, so it's nice to see, Jainil, that you're nice and early in this class for your request. That's fantastic. A little bit more about us while we wait for some of your peers to join in. This lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Definitely check us out there. And for the general version of the exam, check us out at IELTShelp.com. On both of these websites, we have lots and lots of materials for you. We are one of the only companies in the world that actually separates the general and the academic IELTS into two separate websites to stop some confusion. I'll show you these websites real quick. This is the academic website here with the blue background, and you can click that big red button to join the premium package. And once you do that, you get a My Student account. And in your My Student account, you have lots and lots of goodies. You have computer-based IELTS practice exams. You have a full online interactive course with quizzes, strategies for question types. Members, if you have access to these, if you have the premium course because you bought it or you have that level of membership, make sure to use this regularly. You have exam books. You have 6 full practice exams. You have over 100 hours of lesson videos in HD format that deal with all parts of the IELTS, key strategies, introduction, listening video series, reading video lessons, writing lessons, speaking videos, interviews, lots and lots of them, okay? And of course, as many of you know, some of you don't, you can also get editing services and feedback for your task 1 writing, your task 2 writing. And then very importantly, you can practice your speaking for free. Okay, so even in the free version of the website, you have the student partner speaking. When you click on that, then you will have a chance to find other students. Right now we have Sammy in here waiting for somebody to join up. And hopefully Sammy will find someone. Usually there are multiple people linking in here. And you can do audio, video, and text. And this links with the same in the gieltshelp.com. And this is absolutely free. Okay. Michael, the next textbook will be released a little bit later in the year. So in a few months, there's a lot of development that goes into those books, Michael. So a little bit later. Okay, but we will be covering some of the material from our newest exams in these live lessons. So stay tuned for that, okay? All right, everyone. So that's the academic. The general version of the website looks like this with the green background at gieltshelp.com, and it's the same idea. So lots of goodies there. Of course, the writing and the reading focuses on the general IELTS exam. All right. Now we have lots of students, lots of members in the class. Let me just brighten up our day here. And then we'll get into today's lesson. If you join these websites today, you can use the code R4TYJ and you'll get a 20% discount. I know lots of people are planning their exams in the next few weeks, so there's a little bit of help for you from us. Okay. All right. If you have questions, send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com. Let's get into today's part 2 cue card, members. So you are in your speaking interview. You've finished part 1. Part 1 were some general questions asking about you, your hobbies, maybe some sports that you play, places that you like to visit. And then the examiner will say, okay, that's the end of part 1. Now for part 2, here is a card with some questions on it. Here's some note paper and a pencil. You will have 1 minute to look at the questions, think about your answers, and then you will have 2 minutes to speak. You can take notes in the 1 minute preparation time if you wish. And then the examiner will say your 1 minute preparation time begins now. You turn over the card, and on your card you see this question. Again, this question was sent to me by Jainil, so thank you for that request. Members, it's one of your perks. You can make requests for questions and topics. You turn it over, and this is what you see, okay? So first things first, you read the question really, really carefully, okay? So you get all of these questions embedded into your mind before you start your planning. So let's read this together. And again, this is a speaking class, so make sure to speak, okay? Don't just listen to me and don't just type, members, but also speak, okay? Copy my sentences, my intonation, my pronunciation. So talk about an important journey that was delayed, okay? Important journey that was delayed, all right? You should say what it was, why was it important to you, what caused the delay, what happened in the end, and how did you feel about it, all right? So, Jainil, I made it a little bit more like the official IELTS exam. It has all the information that you sent and a little bit more, okay? So again, read this topic sentence twice for absolute clarity. It's a really bad position to go off topic in part 2, not just because that will hurt your part 2 score, but it will also hurt your part 3 score. Okay, why? Because part 3 is connected to part 2, and to make connections between your part 2 and part 3 response, your part 2 response has to be on mark. It has to be correct. It has to be specific. Okay, so talk about an important journey that was delayed. All right. Oh, we'll think of something here. Before we do that, what are we talking about here, members? So what type of part 2 question is this? Is it person, place, object, event, or idea? Which one is it mostly in this case? So what type of part 2 question? Yeah, Bekjan says it's clearly an event is the category. Rejveer agrees. Yeah, Abhishek Sampar, good. So it's an event, yeah. And when we're talking about an event, we want the order of information to be correct here. So what do we talk about first when we introduce an event to a person? Okay, so clearly we talk about what the event was, right? So kind of event, sure. Okay, what's the second? Yeah, so Bhumi says the time, then the place, right? So time, when it happened. Location. Fourth, attendees. Okay, fifth. What do we talk about fifth? So far so good, students. It's important, now that you've studied with me for a while, many of you, it's important that we follow this order, okay? So kind of event, the time, the location, the attendees, the purpose, sure. Okay. So this is the right logical order, and as long as you keep this in mind, you'll be okay. What comes after that? So the purpose, the outcomes. Outcomes a little bit later, Jainil, before that. Yeah, so we can say activities, right? So what happened? That's the one that students interestingly often forget, is to clearly talk about the activities. right? The activities that happen at that event, and then your experience oftentimes, right? So, and that we can roll into one with outcomes, right? Because outcomes and personal experience are kind of somewhat similar. So when you're practicing your responses for part two, definitely focus on the order of information as well, so that you're not jumping around, okay? The better the order, the more coherent the information and the better it will sound, okay? The reasons Gineela's purpose and reason are synonyms, okay? Purpose is a little bit of a better word than reason, I think, but they're synonyms, okay? So it's fine. All right, the next step, of course, what is it? This one I want you to remember. So I know I spoil it sometimes and just tell you, but what's the next step? So you've read the question, you realized it's an event, you keep in mind, okay, type of event, time, location, attendees, purpose, activities, personal experience. Sure, my next step right away, this is happening very quickly. There are only seconds being spent on these steps, okay? So Rajveer Abhishek right away, very good answer, says think of 2 or 3 events. Yeah. So next step. So that work well for this answer, right? It means it's original and easy to talk about. Okay, those are the parameters. And of course, very importantly, keep in mind that this is one event which happened in the past and was important. Okay, so that topic sentence, statement, important journey that was delayed, that's very important. Okay, so when you're coming up with your ideas, make sure all of your ideas are in the right domain, okay, in the right frame of thought. Here we go. So give me some ideas. So what would be some common types of events that may be delayed? I think these days with the COVID situation, there's probably a lot of events that will come to mind. Okay, so Abhishek says cousin's wedding. That's pretty good. Okay, sure. Samuel, that's an interesting answer. A science fair. Okay. That's good. Abhishek says graduation ceremony. I love members how, it shows that you're really practicing, and not only your English, but your thinking is really evolving very quickly as well, because you're giving me some great answers. Hina, when you think about a festival, you want to be specific. So what kind of festival? Boomi, a doctor's appointment is okay, but again, you want to be a little bit more specific about what kind of doctor's appointment. Okay. Abhishek says, my dad's farewell after 36 years of service in the government. So Abhishek, that would be a retirement party. Make sure, students, that you're choosing a topic where you know the clear English for that. So Abhishek, there, if you can't come up with the concept of retirement party, then don't choose that, okay, because you're going to lose marks. Okay, so Ferdovs says a surgery abroad. All right. Sammy Rocky says a business meeting. Again, you want to be a little bit more specific about that. Sorry, somebody's trying to speak with me, so just give me a second. I'm going to close that window up so they're not disappointed that I'm unavailable. Okay. Again, students, simple and easy to talk about. Boomi says IELTS test. Yeah, Boomi, absolutely. Okay. I'm a little bit surprised that nobody has put up especially, yeah, okay. So Beckjohn says visa interview to USA. I was just about to say that. So, trip to the US to start university. Okay, I was kind of looking for that one because I know many students have had their educational plans delayed because of this COVID crisis as well, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this. So, cousin's wedding, I think that's a pretty good idea. Science fair, I think, is okay. Graduation ceremony is okay. Doctor's appointment, I actually wouldn't choose that for two reasons. It's common plus difficult. Okay, so unless you're a doctor like Dr. Krishna, who I'm not sure if they're here, but if you choose something like doctor's appointment or a surgery abroad, you can get yourself into a difficult situation where you're looking for words to explain the type of illness, the type of surgery, the required hospitalization, and so on. And that can get you into an awkward situation. So I wouldn't do that. IELTS test could be an interesting one, although that might be common as well. Okay, especially these days. I think that would come into a lot of students' minds when answering this question. Trip to the US or to another country specifically could be a good one because, of course, international flights had been canceled. Now make sure that, of course, the purpose is included, so for a university study. So today I'm going to keep it to these four. In the official IELTS exam, students, you don't need to think of 20 different ideas. So 3 solid ideas, it's good enough. And then choose. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Pick the one that you think is the most interesting, exciting, original, and easy for you to discuss. And then I'll take the most popular vote and we'll focus on that one. Okay. So put in your votes, only vote once. Okay. And then we'll choose that one. So we got several 4. We got 3 4s so far. We got a 2, we got a 1. Okay. We got a 3, we got a couple of 3s, we got 3 3s, 4 3s, 5 3s, 6 3s. Okay, so 3 seems to be the most popular one. Graduation ceremony. Okay, so we'll go with graduation ceremony. Trip to the US to study, that looks like it came in a popular second place, so try that one at home on your own time. For today, we'll talk about graduation ceremony. Now, for graduation ceremony, of course, we have to choose the type of graduation ceremony, so high school or university. Okay, so let's go with university graduation ceremony. Okay. Okay, again, the more vocabulary, the better. Okay. All right, so we have the what. Okay, now when you're creating your useful notes, I know many of you know now that that's what's coming up next. When you're creating your useful notes, again, all you want to do is to keep this order in mind. And for each one of these, write down just a couple of words that are going to help you elaborate and give details and give good vocabulary and also position you if you forget what to say. Okay? So, useful notes. Okay? So, bachelor's, graduation ceremony. Now, careful. So I see that, we have Sammy saying Oxford. They're not going to judge you in IELTS, but you want to sound realistic, Sammy. So you should choose a university that is probably more local, okay? Simply because why are you sitting in the IELTS exam if you're graduating with your bachelor's from Oxford, Okay, so Jainil says Parul University. Okay, good. All right. When should it have happened? Okay, this is where we get into some interesting conditionals. So Rajveer says January 2020. And here, Rajveer, because the date might not actually be that tricky, but here's where you want to be specific. So 27, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? So this is where writing down these kinds of quantitative details will help you a lot more than just doing January 2020. Because January 2020, you'll probably remember that. But saying something like the 27th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's where you're picking up the details, right? Okay. Janil, very good. So convocation, right, is another way to say graduation party in university. Convocation. So you can use that to paraphrase, right? Okay, so we have what it is. We have the time. Okay, so again, just a couple of words. You're writing quickly here. Use your notes. What's the location? So we have the university, but what's the specific location? Okay, Bhumi, before the attendees, specific location. Where should it have taken place? Okay, you're getting into the guests, but we don't have the specific location yet. So Samuel says an auditorium. Very good. Okay, again, practice going through these. So an auditorium. And then maybe some large restaurant or some other place where the reception would have been, right? Okay. So what would be the location? So we're in India here. I'm not familiar. So you have to, yeah, okay. Reception, Jainil, cricket ground. Yeah, okay. Sure, that could be possible if it's a large graduation ceremony. So that would be your useful note. So now we have location, and now we want attendees, okay? So attendees would be, of course, the students, so a big number, right? We're talking about graduation here, at least 1,000 students. I don't know about how big graduation ceremonies are in India, but I'm guessing they get quite big. My graduation ceremony from the University of Victoria, I think it was 2,400 people, something like that. Okay. A lot of different departments together, of course. Okay. Parents. Yeah, lots of parents, I'm sure. Special guests. Yeah. Okay. Chancellor. Of course, give the name of the university chancellor if you know it. If you don't, not a big deal, friends. Yeah, so great. Teachers, professors, definitely. Okay, good. You definitely want to have something like that because that's going to remind you of the attendees, and it might also remind you of some extra information. Like my favorite professor came up and personally congratulated me on my excellent results, or my favorite professor would have been there, or something like that. We have to remember that it was something that was delayed, so it didn't actually happen. Okay, so we have attendees. And then we want to go into the purpose. Purpose is clear here. It's graduation. Okay. So 4 years, hard work, graduated with distinction maybe. Okay, so these are some notes that come to mind. I'm going to boost ahead here, students, just so we move along. Okay, and then activities. Probably the planned activities would have been the ceremony. The ceremony is called the convocation. It's nice vocabulary. Thank you for sharing that. I think that was Janelle. So convocation, reception, and party. Okay, that's usually what it is. All right, that's what would have been planned. Okay, and then personal experience and outcomes. So, of course, if it's canceled, you're clearly disappointed. But will be rescheduled for October. Okay, let's say happy. All right. So you don't have, in that 1 minute, you really do have to think quickly, choose the most effective notes, and move along. Remember, you have 1 minute to do all of this, and you still have to come up with your first sentence. Okay? So before your time is up. Okay? And yes, Bhumi, speech, dance, those are good as well. Refreshments, those are all really good ideas. Okay? So give me your first sentence, students. Okay, so those are what would have happened, right? Okay, now give me your first sentence. Give me your first sentence. Okay, now for the first sentence, again, remember, talk about an important journey that was delayed. Okay? So talk about an important journey that was delayed. I'm really curious how you're going to come up with your first sentence. So Samuel says, the one event I had been longing for since the start of my university has been my graduation ceremony. Okay. It's not quite right yet. And this is why it's really important to focus and read this sentence twice. You can still save this and you can still make it about a journey. Begjan says the important event which was delayed back in January 2020 was convocation for 2020 class graduates. Okay. All right, now a lot of you are making the same mistake. Okay. So try it again. If you just talk about an event, then you're going to lose marks because you're off topic. Okay? There we go. Rajveer, very good. Rajveer picked up on that. So notice, everybody, how Rajveer adjusted for that. So Rajveer says, an essential trip which I had to delay was going to Gujarat for my undergraduate convocation. That's the right one. Okay? So Rajveer is the first one. If I miss somebody else's, I'm not sure. But the only one I see so far that is accurate to this is Rajveer. Okay, so Rajveer says an essential trip, I would say trip instead of travel, which I had, it's not you delayed it, Rajveer, you're not active here, it's delayed. I'm guessing our reason for delay here is going to be the pandemic. That makes sense, right? Why else would an entire graduation party be delayed? So an entire or an essential trip which had been delayed not so long ago was my train ride, let's say, to Gujarat for my undergraduate convocation. Okay, good. All right, so a very valuable lesson there, students. Always pay attention to that topic sentence. So here's a little tip, and this could really save you. Okay, this could really save you in the speaking of the IELTS exam. Okay, so this is a huge tip. I'm going to go huge tip. All right, before you compose your first sentence in your 1 minute prep time, quickly check the topic statement one more time. Okay, so just like what we did, we all kind of got a little bit excited about talking about the graduation ceremony, and we forgot that the focus here is a journey. Okay, and a lot of us do travel away for our graduation ceremonies, so it's absolutely okay. It's still a good topic, but you have to remember what you're talking about. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? So can I get a thumbs up if that's clear? Sammy says got it. Rajveer says okay, sir. Yeah, all right. So don't miss that, okay, because we're not talking about an event that was delayed. An event is not the same as a journey, okay? And I think some of you probably were like, well, that's why we should have picked traveling to the US to start university, because that would have been a little bit more simpler, a little bit clearer, right? Okay, good. I see a lot of the thumbs up. That's fantastic. All right, so now we're back on track. We're doing okay. It's a save. It's fine. Still on our Band 9 path. And let's start plugging in. So give me the next sentence. Next sentence has to do with time. So an essential trip which had been delayed not so long ago was my train ride to Gujarat for my undergraduate convocation. Okay, next sentence, time. Next sentence, time. Okay, so give me the time here. Fantastic. So everybody's on par. Yeah, that can really save you. Okay, I'm still getting a fair bit of situations where students miss the mark on these part twos. So the time. Okay, I'm going to write it. Let's see what you come up with. This graduation ceremony should have taken place on January. What do we have here? Use your notes. Peek at your notes. Why not, right? You wrote them down. So January 27th. From 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Parul University. In the main Anna auditorium. Okay, so using our notes, right? That's what's important. So Rajveer says it was planned for the 27th of January from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Sure, that works, Rajveer. Again, students, repeat after me. Build your fluency. Abhishek says, it was to be on January 27th, 2020, between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. in the Ahmedabad auditorium with 1,000 students, teachers, parents, and the mayor of the city. Very good, Abhishek. Okay, so students, here we're using a lot of past modal and past conditional, and this kind of grammar is quite tricky, so I want you to repeat after me. So when I'm saying these sentences with it had been planned for, it should have taken place at, make sure you're repeating these after me, because these are fairly challenging sentences in the English language, okay? All right. Boomy says it was planned for January 2020 from 10 a.m. Into the evening at Parul University in the main auditorium. Samuel, we're not shifting so much our focus from the journey to the event yet, because we are talking about what should have taken place, right? We're going to get back to the train ride. Okay, so definitely I know what you're saying, but we're giving context here, so it's okay. All right. Beckjohn says the convocation should have taken place on the 27th, starting at 8 a.m. At the cricket grounds at the University of Gujarat. Sure. Okay. I'm not, of course, familiar with where the universities are and so on. We're just kind of making it up here. Hina says it should have taken place on the 21st of January from 10 to 6 a.m. Okay. All right. Good. So that is the time. So we have the time, we have the location, now the attendees. Along with me, there would have been 2,000 more graduates in attendance, as well as professors, family members, and friends. Okay, sure. So now the attendees, right? Okay, now, Samuel made a good point. So Samuel said, well, let's not forget that this is a journey which had been delayed. So we're not just talking about the event, but we're talking about the trip, which is my actual movement, this train ride from my town to Gujarat, where the ceremony is taking place, right? So I want to reflect on that. So don't forget the main point here, okay? So here, I'd want to indicate the reason for the delay, okay? So before really getting ahead of myself, focus on the question. That's so very important, students. So the reason for the delay. So talk about the delay, talk about having to cancel your tickets. Okay. All right, good, good, good. I see some great sentences coming up. So Beckjohn says, I bought tickets 2 months before departure, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic lockdown, I had to cancel these and get a refund. Yeah, very good, Beckjohn. So I had bought, okay, so this is Beckjohn and others, where you can use your past perfect. So in this kind of a question, past perfect really comes in useful. So I had bought 5 train tickets for my family and a couple close friends 2 months before the planned graduation ceremony, but due to the unexpected or unforeseeable COVID pandemic, I had to cancel this trip as I received news. Now, of course, some of you are going, well, shouldn't that have been March? Because in January, we didn't really know about this yet. It was happening, but we didn't know about that. But that's okay. The examiners aren't that picky. They're not going to be like, well, wait a second, in January, it should have still been okay. So maybe your ceremony was in March. No, they know that maybe you're making it up. So that's fine. So I had to cancel this trip as I received an email that the convocation is delayed until further notice. Okay, so going back to that, very good. All right. Abhishek, good. So Abhishek says, the main reason for the delay of the undergraduate ceremony was because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which resulted in a national lockdown for 60 days. Very good. Okay. All right. So Pooja, again, same thing, right? You want to make sure that you're focusing on the card. Okay. All right, so now we've given the reason for the delay and what happened there. Now, what should you do? So far, we're doing okay. At this point, what should you do? Okay. So Rajveer says maybe a little bit more. So fortunately, the National Railway had no problem refunding my ticket price. Okay, sure. That's, yeah, very good, Bekjan. So Bekjan says this is probably the point where you want to check your card and check your notes. Students, it is absolutely okay to look at your notes and look at your card, okay? So here's a little tip or suggestion again. A lot of students are scared to look at the card and look at the questions because they think that their fluency score is going to go down. That's not true, okay? So keep this in mind, okay? Many students are scared to stop talking for 5 seconds to look at their notes and the questions. But this fear is unwarranted and no good. Okay? It is absolutely okay to stop for 5 seconds to look at your card and notes to get some more ideas and reposition yourself, okay? It's much, much more dangerous. Keep this in mind, okay? It's much more dangerous to talk fluently, even if you have great English, and go off topic or miss answering questions on the card. The examiners aren't crazy. If they see you looking at your card to get some ideas, they'll pick that up. They'll realize, okay, the student has now just taken a pause to look at the card, see if they've answered all the questions, and also to look at their notes. They don't expect you to memorize the card. Otherwise, that's what they would say in the instructions. You have 1 minute to memorize the questions on the card. But they don't say that, okay? You don't need to memorize them. If you're really great, you can do that, fine. But most people aren't like that. I'm not like that, okay? So in this case, I'm going to look at the card, okay? Why was it important to you? What caused the delay? We've got that. What happened in the end, and how did you feel about it? So we definitely have a few more points to answer there. Specifically, why was it important to you? Okay, elaborate on that. Okay, so why was it important to you? Look at the notes too, right? So 4 years of hard work, graduating with distinction. There's a convocation, a reception, a party, some dance, some refreshments. So saying goodbye to friends. So clearly in your notes, you have some points here of why it was important to you. So give me a couple sentences of why it was important to you. Abhishek's already ahead of the queue. That's good, Abhishek. Okay. So Abhishek says, it was not only important to me because of 4 years of hard work in engineering, but also my family was waiting for this day. They were proud of me as I was graduating with distinction. So this trip and event was not only, and notice how I threw in that trip to reflect the card again. So this trip and event was not only important for me since I had worked really hard to reach this goal over the past 4 years in engineering, but also my friends and family were looking forward to it as I was getting a degree with distinction. Distinction means that you're in the top 5% of your graduating class, okay? Furthermore, it would have been, and now here we can do a little bit of contraction, a fun-filled day with dancing, eating, and socializing with people who I got to know well during my studies. Okay, so here's an interesting trick, students. Notice how, again, in this response, we're using the modal and we're using the past perfect and present perfect in several occasions. Now, in the beginning, you probably realized that I'm really voicing this. I had bought 5 train tickets, and I definitely recommend that when you are using the past perfect and the present perfect, that you say the auxiliary verb had or have at least a few times, especially in the beginning, before you start contracting. So notice here, along with me, there would have been. Now, as I go down a little bit, here I'm contracting it. It would have been. Now, repeat this after me, students. This is a tricky one, and we say this quickly, especially native English speakers will say, would have been, would have been. The VE literally just turns into an O sound. Woulda, woulda, would have been. But that actually means would have been. Now, don't start with that, okay? Because the examiner might be like, what? Start with would have been, and then change it up to would have been. Then the examiner will catch that what you're doing is you're showing that you can contract your auxiliary verbs in the present perfect. Is that clear, students? Can I get a thumbs up there if you got me on say the auxiliary verbs early, then contract them later. Make sure to practice these and say them in a way that's clear. Otherwise, they'll be like, huh? Okay, so... But if you can contract them in your speaking, that is more natural and you will get a higher score. It's more fluent as well. Okay? All right, so would have been, would have been. Okay? All right, so furthermore, it would have been a fun-filled day with dancing, eating, and socializing with people who I got to know well during my studies. Needless to say, I was extremely disappointed when I read the email that it would be canceled. Nevertheless, or fortunately, just last week, I got a notification from the school that the ceremony will be held this coming October. So all's well that ends well, and I'm looking forward to my upcoming trip and convocation in a few months' time. All right. So I finished that up for us there, students, just so we can really kind of see the full response. Okay. Abhishek's asking, what's the minimum number of words that we should speak in this part 2? Abhishek, that's really hard to answer because it depends on your fluency. It depends on your word choice, whether you're using longer, shorter words, your grammar. So there's a lot of elements at play. If I had to say a range, Abhishek, I would say probably somewhere a really good Bantu speaking would be somewhere around 150 words. So anywhere from like 100 to 150 words in the 2 minutes. Okay. As a human, we're able to say at least one word per second. So even if you're taking a little bit of time to think, you look at the card, as long as you're fluent, like if you're listening to me right now, I'm probably saying 2-3 words per second. Okay. So if you have 120 seconds, an average of 1 word per second is definitely expected for a person who is in the band 7 to 9 range. It's a good question, Abhishek. So, all right, everyone. Now, let's go through this one more time. So, talk about a journey that was important to you and it was delayed. Here we go. One more practice, students, together. We're going to read, say this, and then we'll wrap it up for this part 2. So here we go. Stay with me. Follow me. Copy my pronunciation. 3, 2, 1. An essential trip which had been delayed not so long ago was my train ride to Gujarat for my undergraduate convocation. This graduation ceremony should have taken place on January 27th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Parul University in the main Anna Auditorium. Along with me, there would have been 2,000 more graduates in attendance, as well as professors, family members, and friends. I had bought 5 train tickets for my family and a couple of close friends 2 months before the planned graduation ceremony, but due to the unforeseeable COVID pandemic, I had to cancel this trip as I received an email that the convocation is delayed until further notice. Fortunately, the National Railway had no problem refunding my tickets. The trip and event was not only important for me since I'd worked really hard to reach this goal over the past 4 years in my engineering department, but also my friends and family were looking forward to it as I was getting a degree with distinction. Furthermore, it would have been a fun-filled day with dancing, eating, and socializing with people who I got to know really well during my studies. Needless to say, I was extremely disappointed when I'd read the email that it would be canceled. Fortunately, just last week, I got a new notification from the school that the ceremony will be held this coming October. So all's well that ends well, and I'm looking forward to my upcoming trip and convocation in a few months' time. I said that at a natural speed, okay? So if that was a little bit fast, don't freak out, okay? My goal is to, of course, always push you for better and better English, okay? And my goal is not to teach you what you already know. It's to push you to the next level. So, and the great news is, of course, with modern technology, this was recorded. So I definitely recommend going back a couple times, checking this 52 to 54 minute mark in the video and going over this a couple of times to build your fluency. Okay. No, Samuel, I don't think so because it's part of the trip. So Samuel is asking, isn't it biased towards the graduation? Not really, because that's part of the trip. That's the goal of the trip. That's why the trip is important, right? Remember, Samuel, the question's asking an important journey. So here, the important part of the journey is the graduation ceremony. The train ride itself is not so important, right? That's part of the answer, so it's clear. Okay, good question, though. All right. Yeah, Mustafa, you definitely want to try and answer the last couple questions. If you're being fluent, they will not stop you before the 2 minutes, okay? If you're not being fluent, Mustafa, then they will stop you. So if you're not being fluent, Mustafa, then definitely try to answer all of the questions as fast as you can, okay? Then go question by question, all right? It's a good, it's a good inquiry, Mustafa. All right, students, that's it for this part 2. Now we'll do part 3 in 30 minutes, okay? So in 30 minutes, we'll switch to part 3, which will be connected to this part 2. For everybody watching, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. We've got loads of help for you with videos, courses, and practice exams. Use the code R4TYJ to get that 20% discount. You're very welcome, Abhishek. Welcome, Rajveer. Hopefully see most of you in 30 minutes and keep the practice going. Bye for now, everyone.